Hello there, my name is Sutan. You are watching Ujar Pembaca Podcast. This is an episode of Books from Indonesia series. In this episode, I would like to talk about a book called Dian yang tak kunjung Padam by Sutan Takdir Alisyahbana. Let's jump right into the story. This is a story of two young lovers. Yasin was a poor farmer boy from Uluan village in South Sumatra, and Molek was a daughter of Raden Mahmud, a rich noble family in the big city of Palembang. One day, Yasin went to Palembang to sell his farm produce, and then in front of the house of Raden Mahmud, he met Molek, who was just going outside. They looked at each other for a few seconds, and then they fell in love at the first sight. Those few seconds, without any other interaction after that, determined the rest of their life. Just from those few sentences already captured me. So basically, this is a story of pure youthful love in front of or against the big hindrance, a huge gap created by the social tradition at the time. Usually I would like to jump directly into the memorable moments, because assuming you can just Google the practical information about the book, but this is quite special because the book needs a bit more context to appreciate the reading or the moments I had when I was reading it. Dian yang tak kunjung padam, or in English you can call it The Undying Torch. It was released in 1932. This is an important fact because probably you might know that Indonesian as a language was only declared against the colonial Dutch government at the time, because we declared ourselves as Indonesian nation. We are Indonesians, so we need a national language which is Indonesian. So fast forward to today, from 1928. So 1932 was quite young in the period of the language, the evolution of the language. So first, it would be almost different compared to the contemporary Indonesian, but that is also the reason that this book contains numerous old Malay forms and idioms, because Indonesian as a language originated or highly influenced by the Malay family's language in Sumatra. That is one thing. Number two, the author himself, Sutan Takdir Alisyahbana, who was born in 1908, died in 1994. He was born in Sumatra, in North Sumatra, but his family originated from Minangkabau, the West Sumatra. So basically, he is a representative of Sumatra language, which is in itself part of the Malay family. Sutan Takdir is an Indonesian literary figure, one of the great ones, because he contributed early on during the formative period. As school pupils in Indonesia, until now, we have to learn about him or his works at school. I cannot remember having read this book. That's probably the double-edged sword of being obligatory at school. You felt that it is obligatory and you don't actually enjoy it, but also it is because it takes time, it takes some experience, maturity, both life experience or reading experience, in my opinion, that before you can actually appreciate this work of art. So here I am reading it again in my mature years, and I noted some memorable moments from the book. This is a time capsule because I felt that the language, the idioms, even the ideas, cultural ideas or what people do in the book, they're so foreign to me as an Indonesian. Maybe this point is more to Indonesian speakers, but because I would imagine it would be difficult to translate this specific point. I noted that I smiled, even laughed so many times reading the books when I found words or phrases that seem so archaic to me now, or I would imagine today if we are going to use some of the phrases, it would be sarcastically or doing it in a joking reference or something like that, because it has been used or exhausted in a way that it is could be called a cliche, not in the negative sense. So when I read this book, probably this is one of the possible origins of some of the contemporary cliches, because they are probably the one who popularize those terms or those concepts or those phrases. But it's just enjoyable and very interesting. Some of the words has evolved into another meaning. So if you use the word with the current meaning, it will be very, very weird. But I would think this could be a discussion between Indonesians. I wouldn't dare to even explain it in another language. That is one thing. Number two, the word in this book is so old-fashioned. It presents the old ways of finding love. Maybe you also find this in other maybe British literatures in the same era. That in the old days, the way you find love basically are through serendipity, like Mole and Yasin. They met each other one day, and then just looking at each other, then you fell in love. Or one of the occasion in this book is that wedding parties can also be a chance, an occasion for you to meet your loved ones, because all the girls and the boys at marriage age at that time, which is late teen, are expected to be there, and they're dancing and all those things. And another way of finding love or love is through arranged marriage. Stereotypically, arranged marriage is used as a way to create attention because it doesn't always end well. Another point that I noted is that they present the way Yasin and Molek, after they look at each other, they exchange love letters. At that time, it was not through postal service. The way it was described in this book is really charming, so I don't want to spoil it here. But yeah, when you fell in love, there is always a need to express, to communicate it in one of other ways. You can really appreciate how easy it is to communicate now until the point of no longer romantic. But at that time, exchanging love letters or reading it over and over again while crying or something like that seems to be the way of the day. And it's not just sending text like today, you have to use a crafted language. So poetry are mostly used to court, to exchange, to express love, which is probably the whole reason of having poetry, and probably why poetry is not so much, it's not as popular as it used to be. After all those being said, the writing itself is good and immersive. I found that I can experience the melodrama presented in the book, the highs when they were in love. Being in love is kind of a pain, but also a pain that is enjoyable. How joyful it is to receive a letter from your love, or how painful it is when you haven't heard, you haven't met for a long time, or something like that. The way it was being described is really enjoyable. And also during the lows, like when they find hurdles that hinder them to actually be together. The author itself admit that this book was dominated by an innocent teenage sentimentality. It reminds me as well of when love stories, even though I don't consume love story that much, but I remember from some of the stories I consume that this one is belongs to the group that is innocent and straightforward, in the sense of it's kind of the ultimate goal is having a marriage. So if either you are being married with your lover or not, that if not, it's just a tragedy. If you are married, then you will live happily ever after. The end. So that's it. Maybe it belongs to a rom-com at the moment in the Hollywood culture. But on the other hand, it seems to me that a love story that becomes eternal, that is being read by generation after it was being written, are those that end in tragedy. So this one is not different. It seems to belong to a group that believe a good love story should end in tears. I'm not spoiling here. Yeah, the source of tears in this book is the rigid tradition of the culture in South Sumatra at that time. This book can be seen as a critique to the tradition, but in my opinion, the critique is quite lukewarm, because in the end, the whole story sort of accepts there is no other way. You just need to live with this culture. If you expect if your circumstances or if your love is not allowed by the circumstances, then so be it. And that's what happens. Yasin and Molek kind of lost in their battles, but the writers sort of give a consolation by giving them a spiritual spiritual victory. So even though they lost in the world, but in the afterlife, in this life they lost in this life, but in the afterlife they achieve spiritual victory. This point is a bit weak for my taste, but okay, I guess I would have to put myself in that period. But all those being said, I still recommend you to read this, whether you are Indonesian speaking people or not, because by doing this you can appreciate the origin of the language and the evolution of Indonesian as a language or Indonesian literature. But you can also appreciate the origin and the evolution of Indonesian culture. So much has changed since that time. So again, as usual, I will encourage you to find the book in your language. If it is not available, feel free to contact your favorite publisher to make this available in your language. See you next time with another book from Indonesia. Bye-bye.